Hello, it's February the 12th, 2025, and I just completed my third Oz book of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And this is from the box set. I'll show you the pretty colors on here. I'll rotate that around. This box set is called The Wizard of Oz Collection. Try not to drop all my books everywhere. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 books in this box set. And like I said, I just completed my third. And what I'm doing is putting the spines in upside down as I complete them. This one, I've reviewed the other two. The first one is the one that everyone's familiar with, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which is the original movie, Follow the Yellow Brick Road and all that stuff with the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. The second book, which I reviewed both books previously, so you can look them up on my channel, live reviews. This is the third live review. The second book was quite weird, had a lot of drug references in it that were bizarre, but it did introduce the character that was very cool, was this pumpkin-headed guy, which made you think of like a Jack Skellington kind of deal or Headless Horseman kind of deal. And he was interesting. And this book wasn't so drug-addled, at least as blatantly as the second book. This one was pretty fun. And what makes for a good adventure in a lot of the Harry Potters and things like that are the contests. And the thing that this book had was not really a contest per se, but it was kind of like that. It was, and I'm going to have a little bit of a spoiler in here, so if you don't want to hear it, cut off and wait until I'm done with this piece. But there's this corrupt king. He's got a room full of ornaments, and they're people that he's previously turned into ornaments. And people can go in and try to figure out who the people were that they're trying to rescue. And if they're successful, then you get out with them. If you, on the other hand, don't figure out the right ornament, you become an ornament yourself. That excerpt was very fun, exciting, interesting. I really liked that a lot. And the other part of this that was interesting was the introduction to a copper robot named Tik-Tok. I thought that was fascinating, being all the news with the social media TikTok that everyone's talking about. There was a quote in here that was interesting, which made me wonder if the originators of that social media platform stole it from this book. And I kind of think they did. So on page 40, did they make many of you? Asked the child. No, I am the only automatic mechanical man they ever completed. I thought that was kind of weird. They were very wonderful inventors, were my makers, and quite artistic in all they did. And I thought, wow, a mechanical automatic man. And it made me wonder if TikTok was not invented for its scouring of mankind and the way we interact and all those things, so that it can train an artificial intelligence. And I suspect that might have been part of the mission of the Chinese government, and it was to teach its automatic man, or its AI, from the way people interact on TikTok. So anyway, that kind of spooked me out a little bit. But as far as this book goes, it was very good. And then I remembered, I was thinking about all the movies that I've watched in the past. There's The Wiz with Michael Jackson, and then I thought of The Return to Oz from the mid-'80s, and it turned out it was 85, and how at the time, people that saw it didn't really understand it, didn't like it. And then I read that Return to Oz is a very faithful representation of book 2 and 3. So it was meant to continue on after the first famous movie and tried to make another famous movie, and it was a Disney effort. So as you know, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is book 1, and that was the first movie, and they made a series of changes to that one. which including like the ruby slippers were not ruby in the book, they're silver. But in the second book, which is The Marvelous Land of Oz, that's where Return to Oz, the movie, begins. And I didn't remember anything about Return to Oz. And I thought, if it's got Ozma of Oz, this great book in it, it's got to be a good movie. Because, again, it says online that Return to Oz, the movie, is a very faithful representation of Book 2, The Marvelous Land of Oz, and Book 3, Ozma of Oz. And now reading these two books back to back, not, straight back to back, but relatively short time frame between these two books for me, it's clear that it was kind of like its own singular story, even though it's in two books. I don't know if that was the intent of the author or if it just rolled that way or what, but it's very logical that it was turned into a single movie, because at the end of Ozma of Oz, she ends up back in Kansas again. And it seems like this was one trip, The Marvelous Land of Oz with Ozma of Oz, and then going back home. So now I'm curious, as I go forward with the rest of the books in this box set, if they're complete stories in themselves, or if they're more that are 2 or 3 books that consist of one singular story. And I need to do some more research before reading the 4th book, perhaps. And the other thing I'm going to do, I purchased the DVD Return to Oz on Amazon, and unbelievably, this is a Disney effort, by the way. It turned out to be a commercial failure because there's a lot of strange things in these 2 books. So, another spoiler alert here right now. There was a segment in there where this woman who likes to change heads wanted to do that to Dorothy, which of course would end up becoming like a decapitation if she was to do it. And it didn't, play out like that, but it would be viewed in a film. If someone wasn't familiar with these 2 stories, they would sit there and go, huh, what the heck is that? And that's pretty much what happened in mid-1980s. When this movie came out, everybody figured that this was probably still connected to book 1 or similar to book 1. And it was a totally new story, and they didn't understand it. So what I would say is it's highly valuable if you want to go back and watch Return to Oz, the movie, read The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz first in that order, and then watch the movie, which is what I'm going to do. I got it coming tomorrow in the mail, and I'm probably going to watch it over the next couple weeks with my daughter and my wife. And I'm going to do another video on Return to Oz. Again, unbelievably, they had no Blu-rays available, and you would think there'd be a circulation of it. But the only one I could find was a DVD. It was like $15 for just a regular old DVD. So that's surprising to me that a Disney movie has basically been kind of pushed off to the nothingness level that it is. And I suspect it shouldn't be shunned the way it was, because I hear it's got spectacular visuals. And if they're anything like the visuals in book 3, it's going to be a great movie to watch. And I'm actually very excited about it now that I understand what the stories are. And they're not simply a continuation of the first Wonderful Wizard of Oz, but their own story. So I will, in a couple weeks, probably post my review of Return to Oz and how well it represents the other 2 books that I just finished. And again, I highly encourage you to read Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz back to back if you want another story that's singular. And I would say it's probably as good as the first one. Now, that's hard for people to understand because they're so used to the culture and the first movie being so breathtaking and just important to American culture. But I think if you combine book 2 and 3, you might have a competitor for possibly a better story. It was pretty cool.